independent, separate entity, a thing. Yeah? So the mental processes, the thought system, the memories, the perceptions, like you see things, yeah? You don't see no things through these eyes, you see things. So these processes are being used to imply or assume or presuppose or insinuate that you're a thing. Yeah? So anytime the attention and interest goes into the mental processes, you'll always catch them in the same activity, which is the act of being identified as a self. So it isn't like the verb isn't the act of being identified, and then there's a noun as a self. It's a whole verb. Yeah? So the verb, when entertained in a certain way, implies a noun. Yeah? So the verbing, when held a certain way, implies a noun. So let's say people, when I first started doing talks, they would get in touch with me and they'd go, oh, I've been selfing all day. Yeah? But I say, no, that's not what it is. It's the feeling of being the one who's been selfing all day is the product of the selfing. Yeah? Or they'd say, oh, the selfing's driving me crazy. That's not it. The selfing isn't it. It's the feeling that there's a one that's being driven crazy is the product of the selfing. So when it's entertained, this verb is entertained, which is being reinforced by all the other mental processes, there's a feeling that not only are you a thing, that you were a thing, and that you're going to be a thing. Yeah? So there's a great master, Ramana Maharshi, and he never really wrote much, but the people who wrote a lot about his teachings, this one part of it was always emphasized. Sometimes it was called the problem or the greatest mystery of the mysteries. And there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing, which is the body. Yeah. Now I had a chance, I saw when I was about 9 years old, an uncle of mine passed away, and my mother took me to the funeral, and it was an open casket, so she wanted me to say goodbye to Uncle Fred, which I wasn't that keen on. But she brought me to the casket, and when I looked in, I had an instantaneous realization, that ain't Uncle Fred. You know? I saw the body that I was assuming to be Uncle Fred, but without the animation of the spirit, it was obvious that wasn't Uncle Fred. And in hindsight, I was seeing the animation or the spirit as the body because I was looking from the spirit as a body. There was an act of being identified as Paul. So I was assuming I'm a body, he's a body. But when I saw the body without the spirit, it was obvious Uncle Fred was never the body. Yeah, because there was the body completely intact, but there was no sense of Uncle Fred. So these activities of thought, of perception, and of memory, if you just see it, you can just, it's like open source information. There's no secret, like they say in a lot of spirituality, the open secret. That implies there's no secret, yeah? Or the gateless gate, meaning there's no gate you have to enter. It's just watch. Or you can see it in about 5 minutes. So the selfing, the thought system that most of us are listening to during the day pictures you and I as a body. When you're thought about as a body. When you go back, when you're thought about you 5 years ago, you're pictured as a body. You couldn't be captured as spirit, yeah? And when you're worrying about you in the future, you're worrying about you as a body. Yeah. So the thought system, that's all you need to know. The thought system takes you to be a body. So the Course in Miracles has it a beautiful way. It says the brain interprets to the body of which it is a part. So the brain that's collating all this information, taking it in and interpreting it, is interpreting all of it to the body. So if you're listening to the processes, if you're believing the process, it's not a very big leap to believe you're a body. The belief in the body is so strong, it's presupposed to always been that way. See, this is the beauty of this statement that Ramana pointed out. That it doesn't say supposing, it says presupposing. So there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing, that's taken to be existent because there's a misidentification. You're assuming you're the thing that's alive instead of aliveness moving through this thing. And that little hiccup geometrically progresses. As life gets interpreted from that point, it's seen as less of life happening to life's happening to me. You end up having an interpretation about life from the brain, from the mental processes. And for many people, it's so unsatisfying, they're almost apt to do anything to get a little relief from it, which is where all the other addictions stem from. Most everyone that's addicted to drugs has been trying to get out of self most of their life. And they were hoping that the drugs would help them. But the thing is, they always run into this conundrum because the activity of the problem isn't like, this is driving me crazy, and I see it as something other than me. I'm going to leave. And I'm going to keep my eye on it as I'm leaving, make sure it doesn't follow me, and then I'm going to have enough different distance, I'll go, phew! Now I've been relieved of the bondage to that freaking vase. But the act of identification is different because when you leave as that which you'd like to leave. In other words, you're identified as the problem, attempting to get out of the problem as the problem. We have a great statement in recovery, which I would match to any spiritual statement of all time, which is self can't get out of self. What the hell does that mean? Well, to me, it's like it's like being at a spiritual shoe store. If you put that shoe on, it fits, wear it. And to me, that statement explained years and years of my living. Years and years and years of this life, I have been caught in that conundrum of trying to get out of self with incredible ardor, incredible dedication, but never being able to succeed because I was attempting to get out of self as a self. And any system that doesn't see that is going to fail because you're going to be there all along the path. There's going to be a sense of being you, being produced. He says it beautifully. The presupposing of a non-existent thing, wanting to get salvation for the non-existent thing. I mean, what more do you need to hear? First of all, how can a non-existent thing get salvation for a non-existent thing? It's non-existent. So do you have to kill it? It's non-existent. Is it going to, zombify? No, it's non-existent. For a zombie to occur, it had to exist at one point. This, you escape all of that possibility because it's non-existent. You're entertaining an insane idea, taking it to be so. And not only taking it to be so, when you take it to be so, you presuppose it was so, and then you project that it's going to be so. It's called the bondage of self. If self was a thing, it would be called the bondage to self. And then you could find a spiritual locksmith that could release you from the bondage to this chair. But the bondage of is you're trying to get released from the chair as the chair. And after years, when I heard this, I never left this point because there's no point after this point. Because every point after this point is going to do exactly what Ramana says after he makes this statement. He says, if your spiritual practices themselves are reinforcing the non-existent thing, how can they destroy it? See? You're now practicing spiritual practices as an existing thing, which is not true. And that existent thing now wants to get some relief from the non-existent thing as the existent thing. So it practices stuff, But all the while, the practicing of stuff that it hopes is going to get it out of something is reinforcing the reality that it's in. because it's not in. So if you attempt to get out of what you're not in, you're making it an in. They have it all the time, the new physics. You know, whatever is observed is distorted by the observation. We're the observation. Yeah? So, it's like, let's say there's no thingness or consciousness, and then the mental state is like, it's like this ocean, and the mental state is throwing chum out all day. It's just trawling with this fishing boat, throwing chum out. And then the mind hears something. Oh, I was a star once, or whatever. So then the mind rises up and bites the bait. And as soon as it bites the bait, it feels like a fish. As soon as and not only that, it feels like a historical fish. It says, I've been a fish for a long freaking time. It all rose right now. All history is right now. We used it last night, but it's a pretty clean way of expressing it. So let's say we're in a world where there's only one sense. There's only one way you can experience this world, and it's feel. You can feel it, yeah? So in this world, they have a scripture about heaven, and it's a description of like rolling around in 8,000, 100 million rose petals, yeah? That would be like heaven. And so you read this thing, and you start aspiring to that point, but you don't understand, you've forgotten something. You find yourself in a glove, yeah? And while you find yourself in the glove, as soon as you put yourself in the glove, there's a forgetting that you're the hand. So suddenly now, and this glove has a very rough surface, like 60 grit sandpaper. So whatever it touches feels rough, yeah? Even when it reaches the heaven of the scriptures and it's ready to have the experience of softness, when it touches the rose petals, they feel rough, just like every freaking thing else. Yeah? So what happens? Maybe it gets totally bummed out and it now has a huge desire to get out of the glove. You would think far out. He's been delusioned or she's been delusioned to the point of really, really getting out of it. But now it's the glove that tries to get out of the glove. All that's necessary is not for you to find heaven, see who's looking for it. Yeah? I just want to learn about what I'm not. I don't want to learn about what I am. There's no point because I'm being it. I want to learn about what I'm not so that which I am realizes I'm not that, and then that's that. And these talks aren't pointed to you, ever. It goes nowhere to talk to you about Buddha. Nowhere. It goes into Buddhism. That's what it does. But this message we're throwing it over your head because you have an incredible defense system. You're catching every fucking message and neutering it by saying it's my message. You heard it, yeah? The false reference hears the message about the truth and just neuters it so it fits into the false reference. So this message is being thrown over your head because if the Buddha hears about you, it goes a long way. If you hear about the Buddha, you're going to come to another freaking meeting. So Huang Po, a great Zen master, says it beautifully. You can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. You cannot use mind, big M mind, to seek mind. You cannot use light to seek light. Now, if the Buddha heard that, everything would freaking stop. But let's say the Buddha, a.k.a. Paul, hears that, it confuses the hell out of him. But the point is, the message wasn't to Paul, it was to the Buddha. Because Huang Po didn't see me as Paul. Huang Po saw me as Buddha and was going, hey, Buddha, let me tell you a little secret about Paul. It's not you. Yeah? And as soon as the Buddha goes, hey, I may not be that, that's that, basically. If you tell Paul, it may be 8,000 lifetimes of fucking practice. Because he's never gonna become the Buddha. It already is the Buddha. We are not given the opportunity to know us, to experience us, to learn about us. We know what we're not. We experience what we're not all freaking day. It should be enough. We should have had enough of it to realize that I'm not that. So you learn about what you're not, you experience what you're not, you study what you're not, so that you'll realize you're not that. Not as Steve, but as the Buddha. Steve trying to realize it's not that is what's happening in non-duality now, which is people are trying to become a non-self as a self. They want to have the attributes of non-self, but as Paul. How's it working out? Not well. I want to be there to experience my own absence. So for me, it just went one way and it's never changed that way. I stopped looking for what I cannot find. I stopped looking for what I cannot find. You're not going to have an experience of you. You're going to have tons of experiences of a you, but not you. You can only be what you are. That's it. And I'm saying we're being it right now. Except for many of us, we just don't think so. If you lost interest in the thoughts, you'd gain interest in what you truly are. Not by finding it, but by realizing what you're not. You would find out about what you are. If anyone has ever had a big moment, whatever they want to call it, they probably have to agree that when that stuff downloads, it reveals to you it's always been this way. It's never not been this way. In other words, it negates the reality of everything else you ever thought was true. You have a sense it's always been this way. None of this actually never came to pass. It was just dreaming. Yeah? Nothing's ever changed or altered the inherent condition because it's prior to all other conditions. But if you watch the selfing's biggest MO is claiming. That's what it does. It doesn't have anything, so it claims what you provided. So look at what it's done to consciousness. If we looked at consciousness right now, that's what we share. Yeah? And does consciousness have anything to do with volition? Are you choosing to see right now? If you took a vow you were never going to see a bird, and you were outside in the daytime with your eyes open, you'd probably see a bird fly by. Yeah? Because you don't have any volition. And when people are trying to say, I want to learn how to hold this space, you've never not held this space. I was conscious the worst day of my life. I was conscious the best day of my life. Yeah? There's no discrimination. The consciousness, the seeing, the hearing, the feeling, the tasting, the touching never looked away from fucking anything. My head may have, but it didn't. And do you need to go to seeing classes? Do you have to, practice every day? Seeing better? It's seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. But the mental state presupposes it's the one who's seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. And now life, that seeing, the hearing, feeling, the tasting, and touching is forgotten. And what's remembered is the seer and the seen, the hearer and the heard, the doer and the done. It's an interpretation and it's dry, very freaking dry. You're so far away from the pulse of living. All those stories about what it was like and what it's going to be like, we miss the whole invitation now. And we miss it mostly by looking for it. That's how we stay blind to it, is we use the seeing of what we are to look for it. So it's a really simple example with thoughts. You can tell the difference between a thought and my thought, yes? It's amazing. Let's say money. Everyone has an idea of money. I wish all of you to have a lot of money, but I don't want any of you to have my money. Yeah? The my changes everything. That's the act of the selfing. It lends weight and meaning to shit. And then you get to carry it like a pack mule. So a problem is a problem. When it's your problem, it's a fucking 8-month blog. Yeah? See it. We're missing it because we don't see it as an activity. We think we were bound one day and we're going to be free one day. It's an activity right now. The mental state is in the act of being identified as a self. Your state is not in that act of being identified as a self. You can see the mental state, but you'll never see what you are from the mental state. But you can see the mental state because you're prior to it. You are inherently awake. And here you can seem to be awake to that fact, or you can seem to not be awake to that fact, but it doesn't change the fact. You have no volition of the consciousness. You would wish you could. You would love to turn your head off at 3 in the morning, but you're seeing those thoughts, you're hearing them, yeah? Because the consciousness doesn't go to sleep. The brain shuts off, but consciousness is there. It's always available at all times, right where you are, with no requirement necessary to meet it. What would happen if you learned that you've been looking at Monopoly from square 3, so it made total sense based on where you were looking at it from, and you were mistaken? And maybe something put you back to square 0 and you were on the same game board, but you would see it completely differently. Without any effort or thought, you would have new eyes to see. Not working out eyes, you just have new eyes to see. Yeah. This correction is a correction that doesn't need to be made. It never changed a thing. It just seems to be changing it to us. We're reality, aren't we? How could false evidence appear real unless it appeared real to what's real? We're in cahoots. We're the total participant here. We're dreaming. Yeah? We're dreaming that we've lost something we can never lost. And we've got lost in the process of trying to find it. Because we can never find it because it's never been lost. It's that old story like the necklace that Ramana Maharshi would talk about. The necklace is the always realized state, but let's say it's like a woman with a necklace, and the woman assumes she lost the necklace. She can't find it anymore. So she starts asking her friends to join her to look for the necklace because she's really bummed out that she's lost the necklace. And then one of her friends says, "Oh, well, I heard about a person who says they found the necklace. Let's go hear them talk, and maybe we can join and go on the next retreat they're having on how to find the lost necklace." Yeah. And he supposedly says he's an authentic finder of it, and I'm a loser of it, so I'm signing up for $3,000. I'm going to listen to this person tell me how to find the lost necklace. All right? And then someone comes up to the lady and says, "Hey, listen, feel around your neck." And she does, and suddenly, quote unquote, she finds the necklace. But was it ever gone? It had never gone. She had never lost the necklace. But even though she never lost it, when she thought she lost it, she was bummed out. And now that she thought she found it, she's elated. But did she find it? Or did she lose it? No. It was always available at all times, right where she was. And as Ramana says, that which is always realized. There's no realization of it. It's always realized. Just like when you're accessing the mental process, it's always in the act of being identified as self. When Big M mind reveals itself, it's always in the act of being what it is, which is awareness. Never ending, no partitions, no beginning end, no entrances or exits. Just the all-incomprehensible, all-comprehending context of everything. So when you have a little realization in your little head, what it does is, it's not mind, it's not a realization of mind, it's a realization in mind. The mind reverberates on and on and on. Big mind. Just as it always is. It's no different than when you jacked into it when you were a baby. It's the exact same. It's never moved one iota. But what happens is how we get defeated is we try to look for it as it. If you just see you're not that which is looking for it, it will dawn on you. How long will it take? Now? Where? Here. There'll be an immediacy to it. And I'm telling you, when what is downloads here, it doesn't exhibit any quality of time. It's quite timeless. It always informs you. It's always been this way. All my hanky-panky, all my huffing and puffing didn't change a damn thing. I wish it could have. It would give me relevance, but I don't have that relevance. Yeah. So when you see it, just see the mind. If the mind dropped out of your life, oh, Jesus, you'd be traveling lighter. Unbelievably so. The Maya is that sense of ownership. And if you listen to the head, if you listen to the language, it's constantly implying you have a lot to do with shit you have nothing to do with. Constantly. Listen to it, you know. I can explain what happened. This knee went out in the water. How do I explain it to people? I hurt my knee. It sounds like I went in the water with a hammer and fucking banged it. I hurt my knee, as if I did it. I didn't do it. My knee went out in the water. But the language implies I had a lot to do with stuff I have nothing to do with. You're listening to it all day with great devotion. And you don't believe so? Look at what people do following the GPS in their car. We were doing a talk outside of Boston, this rural area. We pull up to this little railroad crossing, and there was a little hubbub going on. The lights were going on. The police were there. So the policeman walked up to us, and we go, hey, what's going on? He says, oh, a lady was following her GPS. She turned on the railroad tracks. Even hearing the railroad tracks, she still went 15 yards because it says you're getting close to your destination. That's incredible freaking faith. If you would apply it to that damn little, you cannot believe how much faith is being had in here. And faith is a force of mind, and you better realize it, because it's going to manifest in the vehicle it's put in. And if you have faith in the thought system, you're going to live a life of anxiety based on what's not happening. And you're going to have a lot of therapy bills and a lot of other fucking shit. And you'll be having a lot of garage sales with self-help books in big boxes, because you're going to try to get out of it every freaking day. And you can't escape from what's not happening. You just see it's not happening. It's the same faith. The same faith, if directed by something else other than a mental state, you'll have an ease and comfort in your situation now. It's the exact same energy. Energy is neutral. It's what directs it, what it's put in. And I've witnessed people who have devotion to their thoughts. I would love to be a psychiatrist that specialized in what's not happening. I could work one day and retire, because I could book about 80 people in. And each one of them thought they were coming in for an hour session, and they'd come in, I go, Mr. Smith, and then they start bitching about what's not happening. I'd say, that's not happening. See you next week. Boom. Out. I wouldn't even have to come back after lunch. I'd just leave. I'd have so much money. Because really, the truth is, if you apply a solution to something that's not happening now, it's happening. If you apply a solution to an imaginary problem, now it's happening. See it. We have it in recovery. We're very clear when it's finally, the news is broken to us, that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success, and that's an understatement. It's a huge freaking horror show, mostly. And so we have had all the convincing we need. We just need the right understanding, yeah, and to get to the exact nature of the wrong. And it's not obsession with self, it's identification as a self. The obsession with self that the mental state's in all day is to reinforce the identification, because then it knows you'll never get out of it, because you'll try to get out of it as it. It will pay for the retreats you go on. It's not threatened by any of your spiritual practices, because it's going to be the one that's taken to be the meditator all the way. It's totally comfortable and all that. What scares the bejesus out of it is when it's revealed. And it's amazing, because he cannot believe it's gotten away with all this shit. I swear to God, that's why it's so anxious. It's waiting to get caught, because it's so unbelievable. It can't believe we're falling for it. Some of its loops are from 1983. It hasn't even upgraded its fucking advertising. We keep fucking buying the product all day. It's like those bad beers. All they can do is change the cans. They never change the product. The same thing with the mental state. Once a snake, always a snake. It's a parasitical movement. It's sucking you dry. And it's not, there's no immunity given to you through spirituality. It's totally invaded all that. I don't care if it's 5,000-year-old lineage, it's soaked with it. Selfing is blazing on everywhere. There's no spiritual electrified fences that can keep it out. Because everywhere you go, it seems to be there. Yeah? And when you see it enter your life, you call it me. So, I really believe these messages are to help us not fall into the glitch of all spiritual stuff, which is starting from the false reference, looking for the true reference, while being the true reference the whole time you're looking for it. If the shoe fits, you wear it. That's what happened with me. I heard this message, and my spiritual pants fell down, and I didn't pick them back up. I just was like caught up. I was actually at a real Dok Chen, a great perfection meeting. I looked around and everyone just went, "What? We can come back next week." I said, "No." That was it. Yeah, and my mind entertained it. What was revealed, it was like an unspoken yes. I just knew it, man. I knew it before all knowing. And then it's just been reverberating ever since. And in time, it's become the last answer, which is a great freaking answer, because it negates all need for any other answers. And the traveling lighter has stabilized. Yeah. This body does not want to be enlightened. It wants to have a good latte. It wants to have a nice Tempur-Pedic bed. It doesn't want to sit on its ass for 13 hours meditating. Why put it through that torture? Let it be. But if I see this as me, it's going to be an urban renewal project the rest of my freaking life. It'll be critiqued and gone over constantly. It's all obsession with self. You'll lose interest in it, and you'll gain a huge acceptance of it. That's what will happen. You will lose interest in it and gain a huge acceptance of it. Yeah? It's beautiful. And you could never get there from the you. Never possible. So I love this message because I usually just see it as bad news, really, because it's like a warning on a cigarette pack, I think every spiritual book should be stamped on the first page before the author page, which is the presupposing of a non-existent thing. Why don't you get salvation for a non-existent thing? Because you may feel like that and you're just buying another book as the non-existent thing to read about something to get salvation for the non-existent thing. They're trying to save us time. Fucking put the book down and start living. I went to this bookstore to speak. It was amazing. They had a book on, and the title was Consciousness, 900 pages on consciousness. And it says, an expert on consciousness. We're all experts on consciousness. We're being conscious all freaking day. Why would I want to read about consciousness when I'm conscious? Why would I want to read about myself as a topic when I'm the living thing or non-thing, really? Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Why study about what you are from what you're not? Study what you're not so you realize you're not that. Why withhold the invitation now so that you can get it later in time after you jump through all your hoops to get ready for it? The immediacy of the invitation will always catch you by surprise, the selfie, always. There's not 1 second necessary more to get this. It's already available at all times. There's a statement in recovery, it's the most important one that gets unnoticed. It's before this big aspect of recovery, which is turning one's will and life over to the care of a power greater than self, basically. So you stop listening to your freaking head. Yeah? In the Course in Miracles, they would call it the Holy Spirit. Yeah? In AA, we call it higher power. So I'd rather be directed by the higher power of the Holy Spirit other than my head. And the higher power of the Holy Spirit will take the exact same data the head's taking to create, let's say, a hell, and use it to dream itself out of this place. It's the same information. It's just collated differently. Yeah. So you realize that you're not managerial qualities, so you're open to this surrender. And yet there's a little bugaboo there. And it says before you get to this principle, it says you got to quit playing God. Why? Because he knew that quit playing God would be applied to the third step of this surrender. So it'd be a feeling like you surrendered. And if there's a feeling that you surrendered, you have a feeling you could take it back, which you do. And now you're in this little deal. All right, I'm going to surrender when nothing's going well, but when everything goes well, I'm going to take it back and manage until it flips out, and then I'll surrender again. That's not surrender. That's a commerce. That's a deal. Yeah. So it says, quit playing God. Sounds easy, but what would happen if that which is playing God hears the message, quit playing God? What happens? Now that which is playing God tries to quit playing God. Isn't that playing God? Ad infinitum? This is it. Once the glitch is in place, you're going to try to get out of something, and you'll be reinforcing the idea of being in it. Ad infinitum. And none of the practices will be able to break you out of that because you'll be there. Every practice will be used to reinforce the idea that it's you that's practicing. Every one of them, yeah? So where is the exit point? Before you enter. Not after you enter, before. You see that you're not that, yeah? You see that you're not that which is playing God. That's the quitting playing God, because you know what can quit playing God? God. And know what God is in this example? Us. So God realizes, I'm not that which is playing God, and so therefore the playing God quits, yes? And there's God. And when the playing God quits, it's always been God, it's never not been God. It was just a dream that God was entertaining. So the false evidence was appearing real, but for false evidence to appear real, it has to appear real to what's real. That's us. We are reality, like it or not, lending itself to things through being identified as a thing. Wouldn't it be beautiful if the solution was inherently so? And it was the problem that was all illusory, yes? Instead of looking for the solution to reinforce the fact of the problem, you would see the problem and realize it's an activity. And if it's an activity, it can stop, isn't it? And you never get gypped, ever. You never miss anything. Sleep, awake, you're always here. Nothing ever, never miss. This idea of getting into the moment is seen as totally absurd. The fact is you can never be out of a moment. The idea of trying to get out of self is seen totally absurd. The fact is you can never be in self. You can be entertaining it, but you can't be one. Yeah? That which you are will outshine every fucking thing if you allow it to. Really. Because there's nothing that precedes that which is preceding everything. There's nothing that precedes that. There is no seer. There's just seeing. There is no hearer. There's just hearing. There's just feeling. There's just tasting. There's just touching. If there was 50 more doors, you'd have 50 more experiences. The doors do not quantify consciousness. I would say that's more of us than all the ideas we have of us. And that's where we meet. That's our connection. You're seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. It's all happening. We don't have to make up a fantasy idea of unity. The unity is obvious. I don't see the seeing different there as here. There's no difference in the seeing, is there? There's a lot of difference in the seers, but there's no difference in the seeing. Why entertain your own qualities as some kind of philosophy? If you let go, if you see what you're not, you will feel these things. You will feel the commonality of it all. Yeah. The story or the facts behind blaming others will drop right out. You'll become suddenly accountable for what you would never be accountable for. Yeah. This will finally have the acceptance it's been so dying for from others. You'll get it in and of here. Yeah. Then it can go have a latte. It doesn't have to have like 20 pages of critiquing. What was the intention behind the latte? It doesn't need a fucking intention. The effects will be vast, and you will be there to enjoy them. Yeah? You'll be used. You'll be of service because you'll realize that you are presence, and presence is available, and availability and presence is of service. That becomes in your attitude and outlook. Your attitude and outlook has gratefulness in it. You know, your attitude and outlook changes dramatically. And to me, that's the palette that defines how many colors you have in your life. And now your palette expands. Without any thought of effort or trying, you just see it. You see changes, yeah. Like, you know, AA for me wasn't a way to change, it was submitting to being changed. I submitted myself, because my life had failed miserably, into the program, and the program has changed me dramatically. And I do better when I'm directed than directing. I do better when I'm led than leading, yeah. I do better when I'm open to be useful instead of using others. Just brings out the best in the action figure. Yeah. So, any questions? You don't have to go on. This is an invitation. Oh, yes.
You mentioned that we can see, but we're not the seer, I believe.
Yes.
So, and I enjoy Eckhart Tolle, and he suggests to be the watcher of our thoughts. So, are you implying
No.
that we can't be the watcher? Or
Yes, I'm implying that, yeah.
Okay. So can you elaborate on that? Like, so from my experience of being the watcher of my thoughts, as soon as I try to become the watcher, there's nothing to, like, my thoughts disappear.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. Like, I can't sit there and watch them, but as soon as I focus on watching, they,
Yeah.
you know.
But what if, so I agree with the watching. I don't believe there's a watcher.
So a soul, like I guess maybe my soul would be the watcher.
I'm not a believer in ER, words with ER after it.
Okay.
Watcher, doer, I don't believe that. I believe doing happens and seeing and feeling and tasting. I don't believe there's a seer, feeler, or a taster. And I don't believe there's a watcher or a witness. There's witnessing maybe and watching, but there's no watcher or witness. No activity turns into a noun, in my view. Everything is streaming, dreaming, yeah? Yeah. But if it works for you. See, again, there's a beautiful statement in the Course that I like a lot, because everything is fine, yeah? It says, you and I are the dreaming of the dream, and we're going to dream ourselves out of the dream. So this is happening in a dream, let's say, in dreaming. Yet the mind that's here can use this dreaming to dream itself out of the dream. What a beautiful statement. So you don't have to be in argument with this place or fight it or think I have to stop or start. It's going to use whatever comes after it to dream itself out of the dreaming. What a beautiful, lovely, very soothing statement. Yeah? Like in the Course, there's a famous thing called I Need Do Nothing chapter, very famous, and it starts out talking about meditation, contemplation, and I think I'm paraphrasing it, but he says, if the big mind intends to freedom, it's going to work. It just may take a lot of time. So basically, there's no losers. That which can come to an end is going to come to an end. And if it comes to an end for you before it comes to an end, there's not going to be any relevance in patience and longing, because the solution is timelessness. Nothing has ever fucking happened. Yeah? You haven't missed 1 second of it. Yeah? No, you didn't blow it. Your relevance is totally washed away. Yeah? When it dawns on you, it's always been that way. Yeah? Yeah. So I think people try to be helpful. There's a great thing Ramana supposedly said. I like Ramana Maharshi a lot. And he had a lot of people that had listened to him for quite a while, and they got together and they were talking about do they have the qualifications to teach. So he walked in and they asked him, they said, Ramana, can we teach? And he says, oh yeah, all of you can teach, but I don't recommend it. So they were a little bit, what? And he says, yeah. And they go, why? And he said, compassion. And so can you please clarify? He says, yeah. You'll be at a meeting such as this, and you'll feel compassion for the people, and you'll dilute the message. Yeah? There's a great quality in being unpopular, such as I am. I don't need to dilute the message, and I don't want you to come on an intensive, because I think fucking Thursday night in Doylestown is intense enough. Really. And I don't believe in retreats. I mean, I like vacations. But I don't believe in retreats with this topic, because non-duality is a fact, basically. It's just denying what's assumed to be a fact, that there's two things, yes and no, high, low, male, female, consciousness, unconsciousness. It's just disclaiming all of that in one fell swoop, and if it fits you, then wear it. If it doesn't, you can't practice yourself into non-duality. You can't do non-duality. It's impossible. Yeah, it's not. So it's a really bad career choice to share this message, because really you're meant to become obsolete. And on your level, the quicker the better. Really. I mean truly. So I'm not joking. This is a message you already are. There's not even a delivery of the message, because what I'm talking to already knows. Hopefully it will bleed through your little canvas, which you're looking at so much, from behind. And it will dawn on you, hey, I'm traveling lighter, and I didn't join a retreat for traveling lighter. You know what I mean? Just traveling lighter. Something is changing as I'm living. And, if you like the fruit, sit underneath that tree. I haven't gotten up in 16 years. It works perfectly for me. Because it's something, it never ends. Let's say your urge to entertain is matched by that which is always on. It's beautiful in a way. So, and it generates itself. It doesn't have to be remembered. It doesn't have to be thought about. It doesn't have to be invigorated. Yeah? How can that which could never be forgotten be remembered? It's not true. And how can that which is always happening be a happening? It's not a happening. People who, I woke up in Kmart in the third aisle, the toaster fell off the thing and hit me, and I woke up. And innocently I share that. Then people go to Kmart, they go with their friend, and they go in the third aisle, and they have the friend push a toaster over to try to duplicate what they believed happened for them to wake up. It can appear any way it freaking wants. It's mind dreaming. Yeah, mine can wake up in Hoboken. Why are all the retreats in freaking Bali and Hawaii? What about Newark, New Jersey, Hoboken? Let's have a retreat there. You'd be scared shit at night there. You'd be scared out of yourself like that. No one's signing up for a 10-day retreat there. Something, you need to question some things. I mean, here we're at this meeting. If you're drunk, in AA we have interventions, like people will step in and put a stop to you. We're in spirituality. No one's going to come up to you and go, all right, you've had enough satsang. Let's go. Put the book down. No, don't pick up that fucking book. Let's go. No. You can come here for years and years, and you can sign up for 32 retreats, and the person who's holding retreat isn't going to question it, because you're paying them money. There should be some kind of committee that you'd have to apply if you wanted to go on a retreat. It would get in, no, like the soup Nazi, no retreat for you. I mean, if 30 retreats haven't worked for you, fuck, 30 to 31st isn't going to. Maybe you want to feel like you want to belong. Going on a camping trip, don't pay $2,000 so you can hang out with friends. You can do it in a national park. It just seems weird to me, the whole thing. Non-duality is a fact. You can't do anything about it. Yeah, you're not going to know it more. You're only relegated to one possibility, being it. So you use a negative sort of modality, which is you look at what's looking and see if it's so or not. If it ain't you, what happens is you'll find out what you are by never looking for it. And then a new kind of logic will be revealed, and I'm telling you, it's a seamless logic. It will reveal itself like this all the while. See what you're not, and you'll find out what you are. Any more? Oh, yes.
I have a question about, did you say something about levels? Yesterday we said something, but just sort of levels within this, I never quite understood, because there seems to not be levels, because it seems to all be, once you get to a certain point, it's also good that it doesn't matter, but then there also seems to be levels, because,
Well, yeah, there's manifestations, and some, let's say you're on the level of consequences, where your house is on fire, yeah? You don't need a philosophy that says there's no house and no fire. You need a pail of water. Yeah? Now, maybe when the fire is put out, maybe someone will entertain with you, hey, maybe it's a weird coincidence that you're at a lot of fires, isn't it, Paul? Maybe there's a fire starting quality that you're exhibiting, and then something happens, yes? But you've got to realize where people are. Yeah? Look at what's happened to the word awakening. Wouldn't most of us been better if we would never have heard that word? Really, wouldn't us? And look at what enlightenment has done to people. When the mental state claims the word enlightenment, it tortures the person. Especially the ones that thought they were awake and now has lost it somehow. That's the most painful thing I see in these talks. Yeah? This is an illness, spiritual seeking, like all the other addictions. It's just dressed better. It's no different. The same gnawing drive to get something you cannot find because you are what you're looking for.
Question.
Yes.
Question on that, Paul. And first, thank you so much for being here. In recovery, the last thing you just said was about spiritual seeking is an illness?
It can be, yes.
It can be. In AA, are we not spiritually seeking?
Yes. And it's still, the illness is there.
Which illness? What illness?
The spiritual seeking.
Okay.
Self is that feeling of being the one who is an addict is very similar to the feeling the one who's recovered. It's just an upgrade. But there's still a bondage of self there. That's why you can see when you get relief of alcoholism, you don't get relief of self all the time. You see the statement in AA, the first step of I'm powerless over alcohol and drugs, and we used to use the terminology of dancing with a gorilla. You're going to stop when the gorilla wants to stop, right? When you're powerless over something. Yet, how many people who have a clear idea of being powerless, their mental state is still harvesting tons of guilt and shame based on the behaviors that were exhibited when they were under the influence. So even the understanding of the powerlessness still doesn't break through the original addiction, which is the selfing. The selfing is the original addiction. It will use anything to imply there's you. Recovery, addiction, it doesn't play on one side of the street. It plays on both sides of the street. Yes?
I get that.
Yeah.
It's the self-will run riot is a downfall.
Well, that's will directed by the mental state. That same will directed by something else will lead you into a life of service and of being happy, joyous, and free. It's just what's directing it. You know? Your head is directing life for us. That's why we live in what's not happening most of the time. Because the mental state, it dwells, self appears in time. Yeah? So self has to be remembered. Self isn't like a candle. There's no light that it's generating. Yeah? The light is gathered by remembering you as a body in the past and by remembering you in the future as a body. That's why its logic is I was there, I will be there, therefore I am here. It doesn't start with I am here because it ain't. It has to arrive at I am here through past and future. Yeah? See, the other I am is I am now. The mental weird I am isn't. It's I was and I will be. And then it says, therefore I am. Yeah? It's a process that leads to it taking precedence over everything else, while the I am is obviously before all of its shenanigans. If you see it, you won't be looking from it. That's the key. If you don't see it, you'll be looking from it. It's a heist. It's like a burglar. Yeah? Yep.
Like you said, the heist, the mind becomes more cunning, when you start doing more inquiry, and it's like,
Yes.
do you feel like it's more of a momentary thing, like as you go along, let life unfold, just keep saying like, I'm not that.
No, after a while you don't have to say it at all. It says itself, basically, every moment of the I am. The beauty of it, if there's any heavy lifting, it's in the beginning. Yeah? Yeah. I mean, self-inquiry, like Ramana would say, you use it, but then if there's that sense of being, you just stop asking the question and enjoy that. That's the point. Let's say that state of enjoyment can expand, can become more the obvious, more the norm than you can imagine. And that's, to me, is the stabilization of traveling lighter. You're not attempting to travel lighter, you're observing traveling lighter. Yeah? Yeah. Almost like a byproduct. Things change and then things change. Yeah. It's something that's, we just put out the shoes. If they fit, wear them. When I heard this, it explained a lot to me. Explained a huge amount in a very short period of time. It sort of pulled in a lot of years of living and just went right under that template of self can't get out of self. It explained to me a huge amount of information, that statement. And so many of the others have. What's looking is what you're looking for. Can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. Whatever can be perceived cannot be perceiving. Those things they're like living statements to me. They're just they initiate an avalanche constantly. Yeah. That's why I try to use them every time I do a share, because I like the sense of it. It's very freaking big sky type stuff, yeah? And then you see that, man, we're like marathon runners locked in a closet, yeah? We're just running around the same old fucking track. Man, it's so great when the door swings open and you entertain the possibility and you run out. Like for me, feel like a free-range alcoholic, you know? I don't have to be institutionalized anymore. I don't have to be watched over constantly. Yeah, it's really nice. Very nice. I'm really surprised. Wasn't there anything else to do tonight? Really surprised. I don't usually see this many in Doylestown. Oh. Yes?
So someone had to explain to me that there was a scene there, right?
There was a
Say a
scene.
scene between what is and the self, for lack of a better word. But I had to entertain that there was a possibility that there was even a scene between the two things before I realized that they could be separate, right? But I've seen words hinder the process in some instances, and I've seen words enhance the process in other instances. And I say the process with really understanding that there's not really a process, it's just a scene that we're entertaining that there's a possibility of a scene even being there. I guess the question would be, do you think words hinder the seeing of it?
Well, there's not any seeing of it.
Or
You're seeing from it.
Yeah.
So there's not enough of it. It can or it can't. That's the trick. Because what precedes the words is what gives it the meaning, not the word. There's not one word that hinders everything and one word that assists everything. They're interchangeable based on what's prior to it, yeah? Yeah, so one person is doing, let's say, practices as an expression, quite beautiful. Other people are doing practices to get somewhere, can be very frustrating, yeah? You know what I mean? So it's not, you can't say doing something isn't right or wrong. It's what precedes it that gives it the meaning, yeah? And for me, I love spiritual practices as expressions. I don't like it as a way and means to get somewhere, because I don't think you can get it to where you are. You're already there, yeah? Yeah, I wish it was the case. It would be so much more fun if there was me trying to find the truth. I could write lots of blogs and have a lot of followers, and I could join others and we could talk about our heroic spiritual journeys, but to me it has no validity to it. It's like ordinary dog shit awareness is the access point, and that's always available at all times. Yeah, there's no medals given out. Yeah. There's no foe that's been vanquished. How do you wrestle a non-existent thing? Yes.
These formulations come after whatever occurred 16 years ago? Were you interested in these matters prior to that, for example, when you were at AA?
Yeah, I was, yeah. I had an interest in it, but I hadn't, but then again, I was already in that little Chinese thumb puzzle of self trying to get out of self. Even though I was in spirituality, this never dawned on me. I had to hear it from outside, and then it dawned on me. When I heard it, it was like an unspoken yes. I just then started entertaining it, and it hasn't stopped since. A lot of shit dropped off, I'll tell you that much. Yeah. So, yeah. And then I just found myself, actually I was speaking in recovery mostly, and then we made a big mistake of getting a website. And other people other than recovery people saw me and started inviting me to speak. And then I ran into spiritual illness by going to normal people's meetings. Seriously. And it was sort of surprising to me. And then I realized, because at first I didn't really want to talk, didn't have anything to say. I relate to my tribe, you know. So I'd like to see them do better. Non-duality isn't about being helpful, really. Really, it's about nothing. And if you can keep giving nothing, it's going to turn into everything for the person. But they may have to go through a larger period of nothing. And one thing I can guarantee you, if you come see me, you're going to get nothing. Over and over again. Every year. And there's some people here that will swear, they'll tell you. Because this dawned on me, this little revelation, not so much about what's so, but what's not so. And the understanding that downloaded into me about this is the point that needs to be addressed, or there's no other point. If you don't get this clear, you're going to try to make things clear. Really, right? Yeah, so, and that hasn't changed. The dictate hasn't changed ever since, so. I mean, you have to, it's a challenge because you've got to come up with ways of saying nothing over and over again. Thousands of different ways. So I had tons of stories about that hopefully imply or produce an image that would trigger, because, see, again, we're not talking to you. You know, I have no desire to convince you, because I know what you're made of as this. You're able to be convinced and unconvinced like that. That doesn't work. I'm talking to what you are. Yeah? Because when it hears what it's not, it sees what it's not. Yeah? When you hear about what it's not, it just becomes more of a freaking pretzel. Because now you're going to try to become what you're not, as what you're not. I watch the people trying to be perfect in non-duality writing, like they're like non-duality Pharisees. They got the letter of the law, but they've lost the whole fucking spirit of it. You know? And now when you go to these blogs, and it's like non-dual dueling. No, you said I. You've used the personal pronoun. Give me a freaking break. We got to change the language, make it give me, who's going to do that? You know? You can say I, it doesn't mean you're tattooed. Like we say we're alcoholics. Someone says, I don't want to go to those meetings because I'll be identifying myself. Give me a break. You know, as in Rome, do as the Romans do. Yeah, I'm a fucking addict. You know? Do I believe it? No. Jesus. I don't know. I've got to find. There's a good way. I'm a grateful member of recovery. So I don't really make any declaration. It's like, why want to go through all that effort, you know? See, if you go for a 2-day retreat where you're chanting, I'm not a body, what's doing that is a body. What's not a body doesn't chant it's not a body. It's quite clear it's not a body. It's like, and it's amazing trying to change the source code of the fucking programming. Why waste it? It believes it has free will. If you think you're a body, you believe you have free will. You chose the soy latte instead of the pumpkin latte. You believe it. Why do you want to entertain, I have no free will? It's just going to confuse the hell out of you. Yeah? Just render unto Caesar's what Caesar's and go on with it. This is never going to get non-duality. There's no point wasting another second trying to convince it. It may sound convincing here. It doesn't. The first rain washed it all off. You know what I mean? Remember when you used to go on the retreats? You'd feel great for like a day. 3 weeks in the jungle, it maybe last a day. As soon as you went back to the village in Thailand, you were fucked on Tuesday. Same old, same old. It's stubbornly going on. It doesn't have to be changed. Just see it's not you. If you see it's not you, you're not going to have that much drive to change it. As long as it's not getting arrested or burning down houses, it's okay, you know? So, hey, that's it? Yes? Yes?
I'm sure you heard this message that you're conveying to us now many times, and you were unreceptive to it. So what shifted inside of you that all of a sudden you became receptive to the same message that you were hearing over and over again, but you weren't receptive to it before, and now all of a sudden you were receptive to it?
Well, first of all, I didn't hear this message. That's why I'm sharing this message. I didn't hear this message. I didn't hear, the emphasis was on something else, not on the thief in the room. See? I didn't hear that you got to watch out for this, the speed of selfing to imply it's the one doing whatever you're doing. So while you're meditating, the meditation is being used by the mental state to imply the meditator. I didn't hear that enough. That's why I do it now. Because I went to satsangs, not many of them, but I never heard it emphasized. Yet when I read Huang Po and Raman Maharshi, they seemed to emphasize it quite a lot. And from that point on, I've never stopped speaking from that point of trying to point out the activity of the selfing. Because what happens is, it's like the old story we used to use with the lion. The lion has become identified as a sheep, yeah? So another lion shows up and wants to direct, it sees the lion and says, hey, you're a lion. And of course, it should be a pretty quick transmission because it's lion to lion, right? But see, the lion, what catches the message I'm a lion is the sheep programming. So now the lion hears the message I'm a lion. It's not clear. It gets translated into I can become like a lion from the sheep's point of view. That was not being pointed out. And yet that fit me perfectly because that explained what was happening. I was hearing the message of what I was or what I am from what I'm not. And it wasn't going anywhere, and I was joining with a lot of other people where it wasn't going anywhere, and it started to rub on me the wrong freaking way, where the person themselves who was giving the talk was saying this incredible Zen saying, which is, hey, I'm like a man standing by the river selling water. Like, you fucking morons. Why are you buying water from me? And then he made it even deeper. He says, I'm like a man standing in the river selling water. And yet still people were sitting there. I heard it, I got up and walked out. Because it fit. I was a man in the water, totally drenched, buying water from someone. I thought it was pretty important. So I didn't have any plan, but it must have been because I've been speaking from this point ever since. And I haven't moved on because if this doesn't get in, it's going to haunt you like a shadow all the other way. Because it's going to be you doing and you not doing all the way. So if you hear this now, you can at least see the burglar because it's not going to break into an occupied house. If you're home, it's not going to break in. That's why it has you so obsessed with yesterday and tomorrow, because the heist is already here, always here and now. You go over your past heist and you're afraid of the future heist, all the while the heist is happening now. You're so worried about securing your situation, you're totally insecure based on it because the fucking burglar is in the house already. It's standing right behind you when you're punching in the passcode to the security system. I thought it seemed to be a rather huge point. So no, I didn't hear this message. And that's why I'm sharing it, because I have a strong feeling it needs to be heard. Now, it's not the greatest message for a lot of people, because it's denying you from the get-go. And therefore, what's so beautiful that I used to run into at satsangs, when they'd have questions, it would always turn into relationship questions. I've never had a relationship question after one of my talks, ever. Not once has someone said, oh, blah, blah, blah. Not once. Because we're not giving credence to one, we're not going to fucking amplify it with two. Yeah? There's nothing. It's not one or two. It's Zippo. Nothing. Find out what the hell it is. I don't like it when it turns into therapy. If it had a sign, non-duality / therapy, all right, but it says non-duality. Let's keep it like that.
You sure you're
feel strongly about
Extremely strongly.
So you got it the first time you heard it. First time you heard the message, you went like, yeah, that's right. Okay.
But see, got it and being it is different. The mental state gets it, which gives it a little leeway for something to move through. But when that something moves through and reveals itself, there was no need for anything to move through. But the way it looks like, yeah, you get a basic understanding that captures your little head and it moves over a little bit, and then something can move out, but when that something moves out, it's always been that way. So did you actually move aside? In time, in a story, in a film setting, it seems like something happened that allows something to move over for this to come out. But when this shows itself, it negates all of that. It says it's always been this way. It's never not been this way. So in one sense, it's true. There's a story, something had to move and this and that. But then in another sense, it's not true at all. One is true in time, and the other isn't. Because it's not of time. It's timeless. In other words, when you get the message, it's always been gotten. That's the quality of timelessness. What else here does do that? Does a memory do that to you? Nothing. This does it in a way. When it downloads, and it's downloading at all times, if it reveals in a special seeming moment, it's going to reveal to you it's always been this way. Always. Yeah? It's weird. You can sound all right. So it happened in time, but when it happens in time, it negates all time. Which one do you want to hold on to? Making friends and having followers? Hold on to the first part. It happened in time. Being a mailman? Stick with the timelessness. It's always available right where you are with no requirements necessary. One's a good business plan, the one isn't, but at least you can sleep with yourself. So, yes, that's it, I think. Yeah? Thank you. And let the commerce begin. Shirts and books, yes.